If a young kid has been brutalized by a cop, okay, he won't care about forgiveness. He won't care about compassion. He wants revenge, man. His life has been ruined. We have all these, look, in Louisiana, for example, for the past 100 years, all the people who have been executed have been African Americans. I mean, that's a social issue. What the hell do you do with that information? Okay? You have difficulties with your parents. Why? Your parents have been there, done that. What are you doing? You're trying to figure things out. What our parents are going to do? They're going to sit back, watch you fall. They're going to give you some lessons, but you won't get those. What happens when you get in a relationship? It's complicated. What happens when you have children? It becomes even more complicated. And now the question is, well, you know, the Bible is not going to give you the answers. You need someone who's been there. You need someone who's been married. Look, you know why Stan is good at what he does? He's been there. He's done that. So knowing that you occupy two worlds, and knowing that human beings, for the most part, occupy this world initially. You know, I'm not Jesus Christ, man. I don't go to a church saying, this was my house. Why were you looking for me? You should have known that I am in my Father's house. Are you kidding? Nobody talks like that. That's crazy talk. Okay? So, okay, now, I'm not quite sure what exactly I was talking about, but the point of it is that you need someone who's versed down here, okay? Once you have graduated from your physical life, if you have a psychological breakdown, in the sense that you look at your life, all the things that you have created, and you say, it's not enough. I want more. I don't know what I want, but this is not enough. You have no choice but to go to the back that's familiar. But you need someone like a Socrates, who's been near the sun, to come down, recognize what lives inside you, the yearning, the longing. If he has the time, the patience, the energy, the compassion, then he or she can spend some time with you and slowly drag you up. Otherwise, no. You'll get stuck with the call. You'll find some cheesy, pathetic little answers. Then you'll go back to the call, for the most part being unanswered. And then slowly, you neither have the sun, nor do you have the earth. You're in limbo. It's called purgatory. You have one good day, 25 bad days. You laugh 10 minutes, you cry for 2 hours. Charles?
You went to Columbus?
Yeah.
But it's like next week on October 10th. Columbus Day. Right?
Is it Monday?
Yep.
So there's no school?
If there's no school in Columbus, yeah, sure.
No, I mean, I don't know. Is there a school or there's no school?
Usually we don't, but I'm not sure if they've changed it. I could look it up online.
Campus will probably be shut down. But
Well, you know, Oakland is a little strange, or Peralta is a little strange. You know, we have holidays that other campuses don't have. You know, there are many places in California where there is no Indigenous Day. And if there is, there are no holidays. So it's good to check. Julian, anything? Chris?
I was wondering if a person has everything in the physical life, they're relatively, like as they get older, just old age starts to take some of those things away. And then they kind of think like, what if that's their businesses? So is that a genuine stuff?
You know, it is, but like any other thing, Chris, imagine the spiritual quest to be like a sport. And if you want to engage in anything in life, you need energy, you need patience, you need stamina. If you're like 60, you know, the truth is, you need to sit at the age of 60. I'm not saying it's not possible, because everything is possible. But we're talking about probabilities. What is the chance of a 60-year-old running a 2,000 marathon and winning it in the Olympics? 0.00001%. Is it possible? Yes, but 0.00001%. Okay. So everything is a possibility. But as you age and as your life becomes more occupied with things, it becomes less of a possibility. Couple of things can happen, Chris. Let's say you come from a relatively good culture. And let's say you got parents you like, you don't hate them. And let's say you either have a companion that you enjoy for the most part, or you're single and you're okay with that. And let's say you have a child that you either like or you don't even have children, okay? But your life for the most part is good and healthy, you have direction. Let's just say you're going to school and you want to study computer science, okay? And then let's say you sign up for a class at Cal, okay? Theory of knowledge, epistemology. And you happen to have this instructor named Michael Segru, okay? And you don't care about philosophy, but what you do care is about, you need this class because that's the only way you can graduate from Cal and go to somewhere else and get your master's or a PhD or get a job, okay? So this is a door or a path that you have to cross. And he comes in. And he's wearing his jacket, his tie, that's the way he usually is, and he begins to talk. Now, when you usually have been to your classes at Cal, most of the instructors, they take long pauses before they say things. Their language is a little erratic. It's all over the place. Most often, they don't really make sense. They go a lot of, So, and this guy comes and he's very, very fluent, very, very fluid. Things just ooze out of him very naturally. And add to the fact that he speaks well and thinks well, there's also this thing called charisma about him. At least that's what you feel. You feel as if the more you look at him, the more you allow your ears to listen to him and have his words go inside you, the more connected you become, the more you feel for him. Okay? And then you go to his office and you say, Professor Segru, I want to study computer science. What do you think about philosophy? Okay. And he sits you down and talks to you about money, talks to you about value, talks to you about meaning, things your parents didn't really talk about. Let's just say you came from an environment where money was really, really tight, and your brother did computer science, is making like $250,000 a year at Google. You say, well, that's the path I want to take. Okay. But this guy does something really strange to you. Okay. And he asks you, well, how old are you? And you say, well, I'm 20. You say, listen, you have another 60, 70 years to go. Computer science is not bad. Making money is not bad. But you can also choose this other path. It's not going to make you 250,000, but it's going to generate a good amount of meaning. You'll like yourself more. What am I going to do with philosophy, you ask? Well, right now, nothing. You just read books and you wait tables. What else can I do? Well, after that, you just go to school and get your master's. What else can I do? Nothing. You just go and get a PhD. You're telling me that if I do computer science, it'll be done in 2 years, I'll be making $200,000 a year. You're telling me that I need to be in school for the next 15 years for what? Well, do you like what I do? Segru asks you. Yes. Do you like the things you hear? Yes. Do you see what happens to the classroom when I talk and people listen? Yes, it's amazing, you say. You can do that. But for you to get to that place, patience for about 15 years. Can you do it? Initially, you say yes. You say no. But as you spend more and more time in his class or her class, you realize that this has enough power to crush your desire for computer science. Then one day you go home and you tell your dad, Dad, I think I'm changing my major. Changing your major? You only have a semester left. What are you majoring in? Philosophy. What? What is that going to do? I want to be a professor. What? So you're giving them this language that your parents have never heard, they've never known, and you realize they're just making fun of you. Your brother is making fun of you everywhere you go. Oh yeah, that loser there is going to be the future philosopher, you know. He thinks he's like Socrates. And you get red, you get embarrassed. And you say, man, not only do I have to figure out what to do with my own emotions, I have to also figure out what to do with the abuse my parents put me through, you know, my brother, my siblings, my friends. So when you're done, by the time you got your PhD, you're like 35. And then you start applying. And Stanford calls you and says, Mr. Rubin, we'd like to interview you for this tenured position. You go there. And you failed enough interviews to no longer care, or you know your stuff really, really well, you know who you are, what you are, you know your passions, you won't compromise them for anyone, and you go into the room, and they ask you questions, and man, you shine. And they say, we want this guy. Stanford writes up a contract, gives it to you, you sign it, you have a job. And then you go to the class. 100 people are waiting for you to go and give a talk. What you have is an audience. You have 100 people waiting to see what's going to come out of your mouth. They're waiting to be inspired, waiting to be moved. It's nothing that Google can do for you, man. In the company, they give you a cubicle. They give you frozen food. At Stanford, when you get a job, you have an audience who will follow you to your office, and all of you will have food together and you have conversation. You just have to wait 15, 20 years. The other thing that could happen is this. You come from a great culture, great parents, a great wife, great kids, and you also have a job that you make about $150,000. And you say to your wife and kids, you know, I want to just sign up for a class. I just want to do something fun, just for me. I paid my dues. I work 9 hours a day. I take care of you, wife. I take care of you, children. I want to have 2 hours just to myself. Fine, you deserve it. You take a class at Cal, and enters Michael Segru. And as you know, he goes around trying to figure out who everybody is. You say, I'm Chris Rubin, married, proud father of 955 kids, have a great job, you know. And he asks you, what kind of family do you got? How many kinds of families are there? He says, have you ever heard of Sturga? No, where's Sturga? Well, in Greek, it means family. Love for family. Yeah, I love my family. But did you know that you have a family that deals with your spirit? And you have a family that deals with your physical life? Which family do you got? Well, I got a family, physical family. So you don't have a Socrates in your life that takes care of your spiritual life? No. Okay. So if you don't have a spiritual family, it means for the most part, you don't have philia. What the hell is that, you ask? It's hanging out with someone like a Socrates or a Jesus Christ or the Buddha. Here, the sort of friends that you've been having for the past 20, 30 years, they've been taking care of your physical life. This is about your intellectual, spiritual life. So you don't have any friends up here. No. And he keeps asking you these very pointed, very layered, pregnant, intense questions. And then you walk home. And then you begin to ask yourself, whisper to yourself, you know, all these things, and conflicts begin to happen. And this is like an 18-week class. And every time you go to his class, something about you just breaks. You talk to your wife, and for the first time, you pay attention to the conversation and you realize you're having a really ridiculous conversation with your wife. You talk to your kids and you realize for the first time that, man, they just don't know how to speak well. And when you understand these things, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids begin to suffer. You become less attached, more critical. And then you voice your opinion and you realize they're going to resist listening to you. They're going to push back. And there comes a point where you won't talk to your wife as much and you won't be around your kids as much, all because of Segru. The problem at this stage in your life, where you have your life and everything is fine, there is just too much to lose. If Segru was to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you'll find cracks in your culture. And culture is nothing but a certain set of narratives that give you purpose and meaning and identity. You look at the literature, it has nothing. You look at the media, it has nothing. You look at everything about your culture, 90% is just junk. You look at your parents and you say, man, didn't you guys know anything about raising kids? The possibility of a call entering into someone's life? Meaninglessness, hopelessness, despair? What kind of parents are you guys? The blame game begins, okay? And then you look at your wife and you say, God damn it, I made a mistake. What the hell do you do now after 20 years? And then you got kids. What, you're going to just walk away? And then what happens is you're not going to divorce. And you're not going to continue going to his class. You're going to drop his class. But your eyes have been opened. And it's very difficult to close them back up. You will go back into your life with your eyes open. You won't like many other things that you see. And eventually what happens is that you lock yourself in your study. You read, you write, you think. Once in a while you have buddies over. You just go and have dinner. You don't talk to anyone. And eventually, like Alan Watts, for those of you in this class who know this guy, Alan Watts, who basically brought Buddhism to America, he was married, I think, 7 times. You know, he was a drunk. I mean, he drank excessively. And when they interviewed his kids, they said he just wasn't around. You know, my father was just at a different place. He just wasn't around. So what you have is a man who really enjoys Buddhism, who really enjoys these ideas, but these ideas have no practical application in real life. You know, and if they do, you really need to be a very, very seasoned teacher to be able to bring peace to Caesar and Rome. To God, or lion and lamb laying together harmoniously, because one is going to devour the other. No. So it's always nice to begin things young because you have all the right components inside you. He's only 18 and he's asking really, really good questions. And if thinking, if reflecting, if philosophy, if history, if psychology are things that he enjoys, if he just remains focused, his life is going to be a waste nevertheless, okay? When you're, near death or when you're really sick, you look at your life and most of it is just junk. But since all of life is going to be junk near the end, okay? He's 18. If he focuses and disciplines himself for about 10 years, by the time he's 25, 26, 27, 28, he will have his PhD. It'll be the first in his family. That gives him a lot of power. Now, he could be a therapist, he could go into a classroom. I don't know what he can do with a PhD in philosophy or history or psychology, but if he goes to a good school and graduates, he can make more than 100,000. And with that money, he could help his parents, his wife, his kids, his environment. 10 years. He's young, he can do it. Someone just needs to walk into his life and contaminate him with history, with philosophy, with religion. And because he's young, impressionable, open to possibilities, he'll take the bait. He won't like it, but he'll realize the benefit 10 years from now. Yeah.
Sometimes teachers in history get sort of like on a suicide mission, you could say. They give away Caesar, maybe Socrates, something like that. For example, they gave him a deal
Zion, you okay? Okay. Okay.
I feel like, you just say this is all a bunch of nonsense and you can go back to your family, etc. But some teachers in history, so you could say ending their life in some, but not in a bad way. You could say, is that a bad thing to do?
Can you explain that?
Ending physical, like detaching from physical life completely.
Some teachers in history have gone on like a, you could say, a truth suicide mission. You know what I mean? In the sense that they come to a stage in their life where they can let go of Caesar 100%. That usually ends in your death, and people are okay with that. It's like a bad thing to do.
Okay. You have to forgive me. So you have a history instructor, for example, and he or she has been teaching, and they have a relatively decent culture, a family, wife, kids, or husband, and parents and friends and all that stuff. And they've also been an academic for about 20 years. They make money. Everything about their life is good. All of a sudden, they look at their life. Is that what you're saying?
But not a history teacher. Like, let's say a religion type teacher.
Okay.
They've taught for a long time. They've had a lot of experiences. But I guess you could say it's just some people can let go of Caesar at a certain point, and the consequences of that.
Okay. Let's leave that aside because you're talking about a fruit that comes to a place where it's so ripe and so ready that it just falls. Okay? I don't want to go there just yet. Because when you're ready to let go of something, it'll just happen automatically. Okay? See, what you're talking about is, let's say, someone who teaches religion. Okay? Now, they started at the age of 20. Well, let's just say, be more real and practical, 35. Okay? They get married, and this is their profession. They're a professor of religious studies. Okay? And at the age of 35, they teach till about their 70. So that's about 35 years of teaching. Then they're also married. Okay? And they've been married for about, say, 45 years. Okay? They also have children, let's say 6 of them. And they've all graduated and they have their own life. And this man, who is now, let's just say 65, is extremely healthy, extremely fit. He can go on teaching another 20 years. He looks at all of this and he says, no more. Is that what you're saying?
To me, maybe I'm wrong. Caesar always implies a compromise. You know, and sometimes people just, once they've had all of the Caesar for a long time, then compromise. I just want to have the kingdom of God, whatever comes to that.
No. Look, if, for example, you were to come to me and say, Amir, I want to drop school. I don't find school interesting. And I'll tell you, it's not interesting. I don't find instructors interesting. You're absolutely right. I want to do something that inspires me. I want to do something that brings me to life. I want to live my life passionately. I want to do what Thoreau said. I want to suck the marrow out of life. School is killing me. I want to leave. I want to go to the woods. You know, if you go to YouTube and just type people who live off the grid, you know, you have a guy who like lives on a boat and just allows the water to take him wherever the water takes him. And over time, it was like a 5-foot boat or a raft. Now it's 25. He's got like a house on there. He's got things growing on there. If you were to come to me and say, Amir, I want to do that. If that is what you're saying, you're not saying that.
What if it's more that you have a classroom, you're passionate about it, you know, and you believe in what you're doing or something like that, but then let's say some dean or something hears about you and says, you know, I've been hearing what you're doing. I think that's quite appropriate. You got to turn it down. There's a
Okay.
voice that says, you know what, I should tone it down because I gotta make $100,000 a year to pay for my wife, my kids, my bills, my dad, my mom.
Okay. Henry David Thoreau and his brother, I think his name was Michael. Henry David Thoreau was teaching a class. He had been in this school for a while. And one day, very much like the rest of us academics, you know, your dean or your boss comes in and says, I need to kind of look at your class and see what you're doing. After the class was over, he is called into the principal's office and he's told that, listen, you're not doing things the right way. You need to change your ways. He looks at his boss and says, I quit, and gives him the middle finger, walks away. He goes to his brother Michael and says, you know, since nobody can learn in the current educational system, and this is like the 19th century, man, things were not as bad as they are today. You know, since no one can learn in this environment, what they call education, why don't you and I go and create our own school? They say, okay. They create their own school. Michael dies. And Henry David Thoreau just abandons the idea and just walks away. It is true, some people can walk away from things, and there is something inside them that's quite solid. It's something we talked about the other day in class, anche dandan dahad nan dahad, that God gave me teeth. I'm not going to depend on Caesar to give me bread. If God gave me teeth, I am sure God will also provide bread somehow. I'm going to walk away from the world of Caesar and go to a place where there is only inspiration. For some people, it'll work. For some people, it won't work. I always side on caution. And I do that because, first, I'm an immigrant. Second, because that has been my history, my past, that as an immigrant, I had to struggle, that I did find a teacher of my own, and he took me to the call and the search and the struggle and all that stuff. And I understood a few things. And then in time, I began to understand the importance of having a steady income, having a stable relationship, having a solid foundation. You know, if you are made to be okay in the hurricanes of life, and the hurricanes will break you, but you will heal quickly, more power to you. And no one can know those things unless you're in the middle of a hurricane to see how you're going to be impacted. You know, it's nice to assume that you are young and fit enough and healthy enough to combat all things under the sun. I say no. Why would you want to do that? You know, if you have a father who's been married for 20 years, or you have a father who's been divorced, before you say yes to a marriage, go talk to your father. If your father has sat and reflected on the complexities of relationship, the complexities of compromise, and complexities of getting rid of the fire that sometimes happens in relationships. Someone screams, someone shouts. Different complexities of how important finances are. How difficult and complicated life becomes when you have children. If you have a father who has sat and thought about those things before you move into marriage, go to him. Every single day for like 6 months. Keep asking him, bugging him. Make sure you have questions before you go there. And if your father has been reflecting and then expressing that reflection so that it comes out coherently, then he says, son, where's she come from? Does she have a good background? Is she educated? Does she have money? Do you have money? Do you have stability? Because if you're missing any of those components, they will turn your life upside down. Look, if you want to read, you need to have enough money in your savings account that does your brain space is not invaded, but how can I make ends rent? We don't want to do that. You don't want to have a relationship where, like a car, it breaks down and you have a flat tire in the middle of nowhere every goddamn day. That's no way to live life. Because then your desire for philosophy will disappear. The only desire you will have, how can I make my relationship work with my wife? Okay. I think because of just the way we're wired, again, I go back to comparing Jesus and the Buddha. If some of you frown on that, Lao Tzu and the Buddha. Always, always, always follow in the footsteps of the Buddha. Get married, become discontent with marriage, and then move to understand your discontent. Then you can walk away from the marriage. Not divorce, but you will know when to buy flowers, you know when to go into the house, you'll know when to keep your mouth shut, and you will know when to have a conversation. Okay? Because what you have in the story of the Buddha is, you know when to stay, you know when to leave. And as a philosopher or as a religious person, when you come back to society, you're not going to tell them worship God. People have busy lives, man. Life has broken them, shattered them into 1,000, different pieces. You want to put those pieces back together. Go make it work with your father. Go make it work with your son, your daughter. Those are the important things in life. When you've made them work, if you still feel as if life has not given you enough, I'll give you the Bible to read. I think it's always good to walk away from things when you truly understand. And you can't understand by simply looking at the small picture. You have to look at the big picture. I don't want to talk about racism. But I do enjoy talking about the various components inside the human being that leads into acting racist. It's kind of like food. If you eat food and it's too salty and you can't eat it, you can't blame the chicken for being too salty. You just say, next time I get some salt, I won't pour as much. What is it about human beings that desires hatred, anger, violence, bigotry, racism? If we can understand those components, these issues will just fade. There is nothing about physical life that's pleasant. There are some good things about it, don't get me wrong. But for someone who's truly reflective, thinks about things, examines things, wants to figure out if something has value or not, there isn't much to be found. And the alternative of, you just go into Yosemite and it's not good. I don't think. Design, why were you late? So late. Uber? Huh. Are you going to give him a bad review? Possibly have him lose his job? Why would you want to do that? Uber drivers, they're on call. Yeah, it's like they get a call at 2 a.m. Pick me up. I was just with my wife. What do you mean pick me up? But you need the money.
And then I had another